Let's take a look at the Myers-Briggs Type Indicator. It's an introspective self-report questionnaire that indicates different psychological preferences in how people perceive the world and how they make decisions. Now let's boil it down into 4 big buckets. This could be on your exam. I'm not sure of the measure to which it could be on your PMP exam, but just be aware of it. The way you perceive the world and the way you absorb energy and make decisions differs. And that's why the major categories are all about energy. In other words, how you gain energy. The next category is on how you absorb information. The next category is how you make decisions. And last but not least, how you live life. When you take a look at these categories, how you gain energy, how you absorb information, how you make decisions, and how you live life, we can break this down further into 2 overarching categories for every one of those classifications. So how you gain energy could be described as extroversion. In other words, you are an extrovert. And what we mean by that is not that you talk a lot, but instead, while it could mean that you are talkative, it just means you like to be in a fast-paced environment. You tend to work out your ideas with others and think out loud, and you enjoy being the center of attention. Now, you could also be described differently if you fall into an introvert bucket. In other words, you are described as being reserved and private, prefer slower pace, would rather observe than be the center of attention. That's all about energy. So E for energy. The next is information, how you absorb information. You could take in information from a sensing lens. And by sensing, we mean you're focusing on reality. You want concrete facts and details. You prefer ideas that have practical applications, and you like to describe things very specific. You might hear people referring to those folks as being literal. On the flip side, we have those who are intuitive. They imagine possibilities of how things could be, see big picture, enjoy ideas and concepts for their own sake, and like to describe things in a poetic way. Intuition. Now, are you beginning to discover which one you leaned towards? Now, before I go any further, I really want to stress that this was based on findings of Carl Jung. And what Carl said was that at any point in time, you could be predominantly one of these. He never said make buckets and throw people in them. So I really want to make that clear, that when you take a look at this, be aware that people could predominantly be either of these. However, don't throw them in a bucket and leave them there, because people will shock you. They'll surprise you. They'll change on you. All right. So just be aware of what Carl's initial intent was regarding this. Let's move a step further to talk about making decisions. So how do you prefer to make decisions? Are you someone who thinks a lot? Then we'll give that a T. You use logical reasoning. You value justice and fairness. You enjoy finding flaws in an argument. And you could be described as reasonable and level-headed. Call it thinking. On the flip side, we have those we can describe as feeling, those who base decisions on personal values, those who value harmony and forgiveness, those who like to please others and point out the best in people, and those who can be described as warm and empathetic. So D for decisions. Last but not least, how you live life. Again, two categories here. Those who are judging and those who fall into the judging category prefer to have matters settled. They think rules and deadlines should be respected. In other words, just talk about being by the book, right? They make plans, want to know what they're getting into, want to have step-by-step detailed instructions, right? On the flip side, you have others who prefer to leave options open. Those who see rules and deadlines as being flexible, we call them perceiving. To be quite honest, I know where I fall into, and I'm sure you know where you fall into as well. And you probably can map this, that for the most part, to be quite honest, for the most part, like Carl said, you will fall more into one than the other. Because looking at this, I know where predominantly I may be on certain days. On other days, I may not. So you just got to remember that there is some fluidity talking about the real world application of this. And to be quite honest, one of my buddies who wrote the book, Dealing with People You Can't Stand, he first of all gave me a different perception of the Myers-Briggs test, because before I thought it was the holy grail and everything in it should be followed to the T, until he began to tell me that this could be looked at differently. You know, it has its place when done well, but we definitely don't want to fling people in buckets and forget them because they can shock you. All right. So the summary of all of this, my friends, is when all is said and done, you have 16 permutations of these different subcategories. And these are right there on Wikipedia for you to read up in more detail. I don't want to go into every single bit of it because I don't think it's good value for our time. I would like you to go in there and take a look at each one. And honestly, I'm a bit surprised this is on the exam because I don't think this is the best use of an exam question. I'm inclined to think, though, that this could very well be a pre-test question. I'm hoping that this is a pre-test question because I have my own opinions about what should be on the exam in terms of pragmatism. And let's just go there really quickly and take a look at the Wikipedia page, and you can draw your own conclusions regarding where you think you stand or however you want to categorize your findings. So right here we can see ISTJ, ISFJ, INFJ, INTJ. What I would like you to take note of is everything that is up here is with the letter I, right? And then you have a mirror image of it, but starting with the letter E down here. So you've got ENTJ over here, you have INTJ over here. On the second line, same thing. You've got ESTP, ESFP, and so on going up, but you have a mirror image of that starting with the letter I. So, permutation and combination. Taking a look, you can see that they are all unique to a large degree. However, there is a lot of similarities. Obviously, wherever you have a P, you're going to have similarities. Wherever you have a J, you're going to have similarities. So it ends up being very fine lines dividing some of these when you boil it down, like the difference of a letter. But going into a more analytical view of this, you could have a better idea of what distinguishes one from the other. That is not the purpose of this. The purpose is just to sensitize you to the discussion. All right. So in closing, E, I, S, N. Watch out for intuition because it begins with an I. You don't want to mix this up with introversion. Okay. So just be aware of that. On the other side, you have thinking, feeling, judging, and perceiving. All right. At a higher level, just remember We're talking about energy, information, decisions, and how you live life. I hope this helps you kind of get a better idea of this. I don't want to draw it out too long because I don't really think it's a good use of your time for the exam. Yes, people have said it did appear, but I wouldn't go into the minutia. I still don't think it's a very good use of your time trying to cram every permutation. Most importantly, understand the high-level definitions of all of these. What does an E mean, an I, S, N, T, F, J, P, and kind of just study that chart for a little bit. You should be good for the exam. Again, my intuition, speaking about intuition, is that this could very well be a pre-test question, but who knows? I wish you all the very best and bye for now.